From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. First, the headlines. Nobel Prize in Physics awarded to scientists whose work warned the world of climate change. Greenpeace boats block Dutch Shell refinery. Israeli court proposes Palestinians of Sheikh Jarrah stay in their own homes as tenants. Canadian man to face terrorism charge in US for allegedly narrating Daesh videos. Khalid Shabazz becomes most senior Muslim chaplain in the US Army. We begin with international news. American scientists Shukuru Manaba, Klaus Hasselmann of Germany, and George O. Parisi of Italy won the Nobel Physics Prize for climate models and the understanding of physical systems. The announcement came a month ahead of the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow, where global warming will top the world's agenda. Manaba and Hasselmann share one half of $1.1 million prize for their research on climate models, while Parisi won the other half for his work on interplay of disorder and fluctuations in physical systems. The Nobel Committee said in a statement that Shukuru Manaba and Klaus Hasselmann laid the foundation of our knowledge of the Earth's climate and how humanity influences it. It added, Giorgio Parisi is rewarded for his revolutionary contributions to the theory of disordered material and random processes. Dozens of Greenpeace activists used boats to block a Shell oil refinery in the Dutch port of Rotterdam Monday, protesting fossil fuel advertising. AFP journalists said that members of the environmental group used a sailing ship, kayaks, and rubber dinghies to barricade the entrance to the refinery. Dutch police later took 22 activists into custody and removed a group of protesters who had climbed onto an oil tank and unfurled slogans. Greenpeace and 20 other groups have launched a petition calling on the European Union to ban advertising and sponsorship by fossil fuel companies.
Fossil fuel companies are going to be present at the COP. They always have. They have the sponsor events. They're there, and they want to present themselves as part of the solutions. But this is a crisis of their own making.
Greenpeace International Chief Jennifer Morgan said Europe is focused on increasing fossil gas production that would create more emissions, when it really should break this dependence. An Israeli court on Monday offered Palestinian families in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of occupied East Jerusalem the option of remaining in their homes as tenants. It said that families would be recognized as protected tenants for 15 years or until another arrangement is reached. During this period, Palestinians living in their own homes threatened with confiscation would pay rent to the Nahalat Shimon settler organization. The group claims ownership of the land on which the homes are built. Palestinian resistance to forced evacuation from Sheikh Jarrah led to Israel's bombing of Gaza earlier this year. It was sparked after Israeli settlers forcefully occupied Palestinian homes. An Indian Christian teen who was assaulted August 11th with acid by unknown attackers has succumbed to his wounds 46 days later. 16-year-old Nitish Kumar from India's Bihar state died on September 26th at Apollo Hospital in Patna. Nitish was on his way to a village market in Kamtanagar in the Gaya district, where unknown people on a motorbike poured acid on him from behind. He was rushed to a medical clinic for first aid and later moved to Apollo Hospital in the state's capital. Nitish's family converted to Christianity 2 years ago. His family says he was threatened by radical Hindu nationalists. Jordan's King Abdullah II was amongst the 35 current and former world leaders to use shell companies to hide their wealth. That's according to a report published by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. A leak of nearly 12 million files revealed the king was among several leaders to use secret offshore accounts to amass overseas properties. Abdullah is accused of using companies registered in the Caribbean to buy 15 properties, collectively worth more than $100 million. In related news, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan said his government will investigate nationals who were named in the leak, which includes 2 cabinet members. The Christian population in Indonesia has grown by almost 1% over the past decade, latest data shows. The Ministry of Home Affairs reported in June that the total population is roughly 272 million. Of that number, about 236 million, or nearly 87%, are Muslims. Nearly 20 million people identify as Protestants and about 8 million people as Catholics. Indonesia has the largest Muslim population in the world, followed by Pakistan. A Canadian man accused of narrating 2 propaganda videos used by Daesh to recruit followers and encourage terrorist attack is now facing prosecution in the United States. Mohammed Khalifa, who traveled to Syria in 2013 and later joined Daesh, was captured in early 2019. He was allegedly part of the group's Ministry of Media, responsible for publicizing the beheading of American journalist James Foley. The 38-year-old is charged with material terrorism support that resulted in death, according to the criminal complaint filed in the Eastern District of Virginia. And now in domestic news, US President Joe Biden this week went on the offensive, attacking Republicans over the looming threat of debt default. President Biden pressured the Democratic Party to enact his stalled multi-trillion-dollar domestic spending plan during a trip to Michigan on Tuesday. In his speech, Biden called Republican opponents reckless for refusing to join Democrats in raising the debt limit. He said Republicans' obstruction could push the economy over a cliff.
So let's be clear. Not only are Republicans refusing to do their job, they're threatening to use their power, to prevent us from doing our job, saving the economy from a catastrophic event. I think, quite frankly, it's hypocritical, dangerous, and disgraceful. Their obstruction and irresponsibility knows absolutely no bounds, especially as we're clawing our way out of this pandemic.
Moderates in the House and in the ultra-tight Senate are refusing to go along with the progressive wing's desired $3.5 trillion price tag on social spending. Progressives are rejecting the counteroffer of $1.5 trillion. Biden is now pushing for spending in the $2 trillion range. Former Facebook product manager and whistleblower Frances Haugen testified Tuesday at a Senate subcommittee hearing on protecting children online. In a recent Wall Street Journal investigation, Haugen revealed troubling insights into how Instagram affects teenagers, how it handles children, and other consumer protection matters related to Facebook. Connecticut Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal, who chairs the Senate subcommittee, tweeted that Facebook's action makes clear that we cannot trust it to police itself. He urged stronger oversight, effective protections for children, and tools for parents. Blumenthal pressed Haugen for more details about what she learned while working for Facebook and other tech companies. Before joining Facebook, Haugen worked for Google, Yelp, and Pinterest. Haugen claims Facebook prematurely turned off safeguards designed to thwart misinformation in a money-making move. She says this contributed to the January 6th attack on the US Capitol. Haugen also said Facebook's lack of transparency is why there is a need for a whistleblower. She said the world's largest social media platform hides behind walls that keep the eyes of researchers and regulators from understanding the true dynamics of the system. We have to just trust what Facebook says is true, and they have repeatedly proved that they do not deserve our blind faith. Haugen also said that there's a clear lack of accountability at Facebook, and that CEO Mark Zuckerberg's power is virtually unchecked. Zuckerberg has majority voting control and serves as CEO and chairman of its board. Haugen said that this makes him unusually powerful within Silicon Valley, and there is no one currently holding Mark accountable but himself. According to a national report by mortgage lender Freddie Mac, homes in Black and Latino neighborhoods are more likely to be undervalued by appraisers. The report examined 12 million home appraisals from 2015 to 2020. It found appraisers undervalued homes by 7.4% in white communities, 12.5% in Black neighborhoods, and 15.4% in Latino communities. The appraisal gap means it's more difficult for Blacks and Latinos to become homeowners due to potentially higher mortgage rates. According to Jeff Smith, Executive Director of DePaul University's Institute of Housing Studies, minority homeowners also can be prevented from selling their property for a profit. Khalid Shabazz has been named the command chaplain for the U.S. Army Central, the three-star command responsible for land operations in the Middle East. Shabazz is the first Muslim chaplain in the U.S. military to attain the rank of colonel. He joined the Army as a field artilleryman. In an interview with the Army Times, Shabazz spoke about his career being among select few Muslim chaplains to serve during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. A former college football player, Shabazz has become a TikTok micro-celebrity in recent months. He mostly shares gym videos and motivational content with his nearly 23,000 followers. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September. I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. You saved me.
you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss the Facebook outage and how the social network knowingly promotes hate, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Hena. Conversation is about Facebook and Instagram and everything else, WhatsApp. So people thought they're worried about what Facebook company is doing, but then Facebook company went down. For not the company itself, it went down in stock, but it got disconnected. For many people around the world, Facebook is the internet. But there are a lot of questions about it. And in today's hearing, Frances Haugen is testifying at the Senate. And many things are coming up there, what Facebook can do to save children. It is focused on children and what children are facing. And to have that conversation, they're using terminology like algorithm. A senator called for algorithmic justice. They're talking about metrics. They're talking about artificial intelligence. To discuss all of that, with us is Shahid Amanullah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. It's good to see you.
Shahid Amanullah is a managing partner for Frost Capital and is co-founder of Zabiha.com and Zakatify. Tell us, what in the world is going on with Facebook?
Well, what you're seeing happening now is the culmination of years and years and years of Facebook and the people who use Facebook truly understanding what it is we've all created together. Like all technologies, sometimes we build before we understand the ramifications. And I think what we're seeing today is that Facebook specifically and online tools in general are an amplification of what's good in our society and what's bad in our society. And when you create tools that are focused on a few metrics that it considers to be important, things like page views or attention or in the end revenue, then that system is going to do what it has to do to get to those metrics, even if they have a destabilizing impact on society. And what Facebook is trying to do is trying to roll back some of those effects. I've worked with Facebook people for the last 5-6 years, specifically on this issue. And there are a lot of very good people at Facebook trying to do the right thing. But it's a very difficult battle to face because, what are the types of content that generate page views, that generate attention? It's violent content. It's hateful content. It's content that riles your emotions. It's content that validates views that you might have that are outside the mainstream. Now, Facebook has been a wonderful tool for a lot of people, including myself. I find it incredibly invaluable. But what we're finding is that these problems we have in society in general have now been amplified by Facebook. And now Facebook has to find a way to deal with that so that it doesn't become part of the problem. But I also ask that people who use these social media tools look inside themselves and ask themselves, what is it about our society that leads people to be violent, that leads people to be hateful, that leads people to be suspicious of other people or adopt fringe philosophies? Now, that doesn't absolve Facebook of any guilt in this matter. They've got to do better. They can't just say, we can't do anything about it. That's just the way the internet is. Well, I'm sorry. You've created a platform that is like a country that governs 1 billion or more people. So in doing that, you can't just create a state of anarchy. You've got to govern that. You've got to allow good people to benefit, and you've got to marginalize the ability for people who have ill intent to harm other people. And that harm comes in multiple ways. In the hearings, you've heard specifically about the negative impact that social media can have on people. Well, this is an expansion of our society being, susceptible to vanity and to competition and things like that. So, we have to find out how we can coexist with these tools, with Instagram and Facebook, in ways that don't make the problem worse. I'll give you a quick example. Like with my children, I allowed my children to be on Instagram at a fairly early age, at the age of 13, but I gave them 2 rules. I said, I don't ever want to see a picture of your face. And I said, as you point the camera outside, not inside, tell me the story of what you're taking a picture of. I want you to use it as a communication tool and hone your ability to tell a story. And I think that's served them well. It's something that I tell other parents to do. But, an individual doing this alone isn't going to solve the problem. Facebook's really got to be a part of that solution.
Well, some of the people are saying, a senator actually who proposed, I don't know what is his name, but he has written Children Television Act. Do you think there is a need for Children's Social Media Act?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think the internet is a free and open medium, and people are going to find their way on it, regardless of what parents do or what the government does. And I think we can't be naive just to think that somehow if we regulate the companies a little bit more, it'll solve the problem. As I've told you, it is both a societal and a technological problem. I think what needs to happen is an all-hands approach. We get parents involved, we get civil rights groups involved, we get the companies involved, we get government involved, and we collectively come up with a solution where we all play our part and we all play our role. I think passing rules on Facebook, expecting them to solve the problem, is not going to help, because we've been telling them to solve the problem for years and they haven't been able to for whatever reason. So this is now a time where we get everyone at the table and figure something out.
Shahid, one of the things senators are talking about, they're using the term algorithmic justice. I think Khwarizmi, who passed away 1,000 years ago, must be very happy to hear his name, although so they keep talking about algorithmic. But one of the things which I hope Senator will know, but at least our audience need to understand what an algorithm can do and what it cannot do, and what is algorithm.
So look, people have been using algorithms to fine-tune the results of every technology. If you're trying to sell more, you tune an algorithm. If you're trying to reach a certain goal with respect to page views, the algorithm is the one that senses inputs and makes decisions and adjusts the parameters of the tool. While algorithms have gotten us into this problem, it's very easy to think that algorithms can get us out of this problem by introducing other factors. Like, it's not just about page views, it's about other things. But I think it's hard to gamify, or it's hard to kind of design algorithms around social benefit. I think that that's going to be much more of a challenge. Like a lot of things on the internet, the harm is easier to create than the solution. But the thing that I do worry about is that if we just think that we can design an algorithm and the problem will solve itself, I think we're fooling ourselves. I think we should become more involved as people in the solution, not less involved in the solution. And so I don't trust an algorithm to look out for my rights. I don't trust an algorithm to ensure the health of my children. So, these are very kind of easy answers that people think you can sprinkle some technology on it and everything will be better. I fundamentally disagree with that.
Don't you think this is exactly what Facebook tried to do? Because there is a monk called Virathu in Burma. This guy was on the Time magazine's cover as a face of hate for Buddhism, which I didn't like, connecting him, although he's a monk. But it took Facebook 3 years before they were able to ban him. And he is the guy who created something which is now International Court of Justice has determined to be a genocide provisionally, that is. So do you think Facebook need more smart, educated people with clear morals along with its algorithm?
When you have a social media universe that has billions of users, and each of these users are using a variety of words and phrases to communicate their ideas, it's very, very difficult to use an algorithm to police that. Plus, we also have to ask ourselves, do we want every single word that we're saying on social media to be policed? I think what we need to do is we need to create a system where people feel empowered to take action when they see things that are going to cause harm. The problem that you mentioned with Burma, which is similar to the problem that we've seen in India with WhatsApp and Sri Lanka also on Facebook, is that people were warning, and Facebook didn't have the infrastructure in place to process that. Now, of course, they're hiring as many as many moderators as they can in various different languages. One of the reasons that Burma and Sri Lanka in particular were off the radar is because they didn't have enough Sinhalese or Burmese-speaking moderators to kind of keep an eye out for themes that could lead to hatred in the real world. But the other issue is WhatsApp. WhatsApp has been used extensively in India to rally mobs at very, very quickly to assault a Muslim who is being accused of trafficking beef. And you've had lynch mobs come after innocent people and kill them, sometimes within an hour or hours of the call being put out. It's very hard to moderate something like that. Even if someone did see it, how do you stop it? How do you prevent the message once it's gotten out from mobilizing a hateful group? This is why I see that the problem is far larger than Facebook. I mean, the easy answer is just shut down WhatsApp and shut down Facebook. But I think people would agree that these are tools that have immense social benefit, and I don't want to throw that out with everything else. But my deeper question is, what is it about our society that you scratch below the surface and people are willing to kill and hate and oppose their neighbors violently? How did that happen, and how do we heal that?
Well, Shahid, but Facebook has a problem finding people who speak Sri Lankan and Burmese language, but they do not have problem people who understand India and Indian language. So why they are unable to control lynching mob, which is using WhatsApp to organize?
I'll be honest, and I have worked with Facebook during that whole time on a lot of these issues. I think they were overwhelmed with how much they were a part of these movements. And I think that the delay that you saw was simply them being overwhelmed. When you grow into a user base of 1 to 2 billion people, your ability to deliver that service safely can't scale that quickly. And they scaled very quickly to that size. And I think they're still trying to absorb what it means to be governing a audience of that many people and trying to promote civility in there. Think of a country that's that size. Think of the infrastructure a country would need to create civil peace among 1 billion people. Well, Facebook has to do that with, 30,000 employees, most of whom are based in the US. So, it becomes a really real challenge. And yes, you can use technology to solve some of that, but there's still a huge human element here. And I think that to bring on employees that have language understanding, that have anthropological understanding, that have some empathy, that have some background in human rights, background in hate movements, I think that's all very helpful. But the number of people they're bringing on simply does not match the scale of the problem. And this is every single country, including this country. White supremacist ideology has been spread globally. If you look at what happened in Christchurch, a lot of that came through all these, whether it's a WhatsApp group or a Facebook page. And it doesn't matter if you take them down every day 10 more pop up. And so I make no mistake about it. Facebook has to act. Facebook has to be strong about this. But we also we can't expect them to solve the problem by themselves. Government has to get involved. Civil society has to get involved. And we as individuals have to get involved too.
Just yesterday, Stand with Kashmir came up with a report, and they were saying that people who speak up for what is wrong in Kashmir in terms of human rights are especially being discouraged or post-deleted, people banned. And Muslims have complained the same thing about the issues of Palestine. And they sort of suspect a specific bias towards their voice. Why do you think do you think their complaint is justified? Do you notice that, or it is also a problem which is nothing to do with the bias?
So, social media is a two-edged sword, right? If everybody had a camera, and Palestine is a great example of this, everybody have a camera filming an injustice, you can get that out to the world, immediately. And the countries involved can't do anything about it. They can't stop it. But the other side of that is that if you amplify yourself on social media, calling out a country or calling out a practice, now you're on the radar of that country, and they can follow you on social media, and they can track you on social media, and they can find you and arrest you. And we see this happening all the time. And so, the role that social media plays in this is simply the role of the publisher, right? A lot of good, again, has come out of our ability to highlight something, film a video, put it out on Facebook, let the world know, and the perpetrators involved can't escape responsibility for it. But, imagine what it must mean to be a civil rights or human rights worker in these areas, amplifying these causes, getting attention for it, getting even movement on it. Well, of course, a country that is perpetrating that is going to step in and try to silence you. But that is outside the realm of Facebook, and that's now in the realm of international diplomacy. It's in the role of public pressure on these perpetrators. And I think that one of the good things that social media can do is it can shame governments and civic leaders into doing the right thing. We all have a role to play in this. If Facebook just shut off the social media of an activist, they're not helping that activist either, with respect to the country or with respect to their cause. But if they, but they can't stop government officials from being on Facebook to track it either, because everyone has access to it. And if you try to shut down a government's access to it, they'll just find another way to track these people. So it is a very, very complex problem.
You mentioned a couple of times it need to be people, society, that is civil society, government and Facebook, everybody will have to handle this issue. We talked about Facebook mostly. What do you think government and the civil society should do about it?
So first of all, I think civil society needs to actively engage through social media with these different groups of people. There's two different groups of people to engage with. There are the people who are vulnerable to being targeted, to let them know that they have options, they have ability to reach out to other people to help protect their safety, to amplify their cause to the point where it's harder for people to disenfranchise them. A person who is isolated and alone and invisible is easier to victimize. The second is to stand up to hateful voices online, and we've, again, no country is immune, no group of people are immune. There are hateful voices out there that come from every corner of the world. But to be able to stand up to these people and let them know that they're in the minority and the majority is not going to be silent anymore, and that we're not going to tolerate their taking advantage of social media to victimize people. And I think, I think a lot of what happens now, if you saw, for example, the radicalization that happened before the January 6th attack on the Capitol, or before Christchurch, or even going back further, when you had everything going on with ISIS, people felt like emboldened to be able to spread hate because nobody was stopping them, and the audiences that they hated weren't stopping them either. So, that's my question is, and I don't know the answer to that. I just simply know that we as the majority need to stand up to these people, and we need to let them know that we're watching them and that their behavior won't be tolerated. And now, if we can do that in conjunction with Facebook and the government to increase the ability to report, increase the ability to respond to reports, to come down with some very serious guidelines that will make it easier for people to be kicked off of social media. These deplatforming works. I'm a big free speech proponent. Believe me, I think that everyone should be able to come compete in the marketplace of ideas. But when certain hateful people like Milo were deplatformed, like even Donald Trump was deplatformed, their influence dropped dramatically. So we need to increasingly tighten those rules and make sure to hold these people accountable and not let them sit a minute longer on social media once they're determined to have crossed that line.
Well, you have been a technology expert and a founder of different ventures. If you were a CEO of Facebook, what would you do inside the Facebook to play its role for decreasing hate and keeping children safe?
So I think, as a lot of people have been saying, I think transparency is key. When people rail on Facebook and say, you need to solve this problem, frankly, if I were Facebook, I would say, here's the data. This is how complex the problem is. What ideas do you have to help us solve this? Because we're willing to work with you and we're willing to crowdsource the best ideas from everybody to get to that point. Come to the table with us. Let's figure this out together. Because if I were to do that as a CEO, I'd cease becoming the enemy and I start becoming a partner. And I think it's just, but if you clam up, if you don't share anything, then of course all the attention and energy is going to go on you.
Well, thank you so much, Shahid Amanullah, for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Back to you, Hena.
Thank you so much, Nick Morton and Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.